What's up, Bender fam? Dylan from Trailbenders Overland here, and in this video, my 4th Gen 4Runner is getting a complete power system overhaul. We're getting rid of the Yellow Top AGM battery and cheaper power system, and going with what we could put together as the best charging system we could, with the REDARC for power management and Lion Energy for our storage. This is the 40 amp charging system, ideal for a mid-size SUV. I'm going to show you how we install. Let's get started. To get started, we'll be pulling out the old battery and charging wires. We'll be rerouting some of the wiring from the starter battery over to auxiliary. Let's pull this all out. This looks like a lot of stuff, but to make it easy for you, we put together a kit on our website where you can get it all in one place. If you watched my rig tour, you'd recognize my storage platform that I have in the back of the 4Runner. And because the lithium batteries don't like being in high heat, I've moved the whole system to inside of the cab. Built this battery box here, and we want the charger as close to the battery as possible. So this piece is optional. We cut ourselves some sheet metal that will help disperse some heat from the BCDC. It'll handle its heat just fine on its own, but this is just an extra measure to help keep us cool. That's a special tip we got straight from REDARC engineers. We have a few other things to mount here. So next we'll put our load disconnect, which is our protection for the lithium battery, so we don't discharge it too much. There we go. And we have two 60 amp fuses that we'll be mounting here as well. Now let's slide this battery in so we can continue the line. A couple of these steps are optional, like the heat shrink and soldering, but the best connection is going to be if you crimp one of these eyelets on and then solder your connection. So I'll crimp this on, and for the soldering you can use a torch or a soldering iron. With these bigger eyelets, we're having a better time using the torch. If you get a friend to hold your wire, you want to heat up your eyelet so that the solder will go down inside into that wire. There you go. And grab your heat shrink, and heat that up. Now with this all mounted up, battery in place, we've shown you how to solder your eyelets and prep your wiring. Let's talk about these wires. So the red wire is your hot lead that comes from the positive side of your starter battery. This is power input to your BCDC. Black, of course, is your ground. The brown is the positive lead that comes output out of the BCDC and charges your auxiliary battery. This green and orange wire, when you put these together, it puts the system into lithium mode, so it properly charges a lithium battery. This will charge any battery, but this is how you set it up for lithium. The yellow cable is your solar input, and blue is not applicable for us because we don't have a smart alternator in this 4th Gen 4Runner. But if you did have a smart alternator, this would hook up to an ignition fuse, but we just went ahead and terminated that wire. So let's start wiring. While we're right here, we'll start with running our brown power output from the BCDC into this fuse. We've prepared another wire here to hook up to the positive side of our battery. Run that around down to there. We'll leave that there for 1 second. Now, coming out of the positive terminal will be another wire that will ultimately run to our bus bar, or in your case, maybe a fuse box. This one will come into this fuse. We'll hook both of these up to our positive terminal. And now we'll hook up a wire between the fuse and our load disconnect. Now, the input side of this load disconnect is the side without a brown wire on it. The side with the brown wire is what will lead out to your fuse box or bus bar. Now we can tighten these all down. You'll notice on the load disconnect that there's an override wire. We are not going to connect that. Now let's hook up our solar. So we have this Anderson cable that we got from Amazon. We'll hook up the positive side of the Anderson cable to the yellow. And we have this cool connection here where all we need to do is put those next to each other, get the torch on it, and that will heat shrink and solder. All right, that's good to go. And when we get the system in, we'll hook up this ground right next to our battery ground inside. It's time to run some of our 8-gauge wire through the firewall. So what we do is we tape the wire to a coat hanger, a wire coat hanger. That helps us have some rigidity to poke through this grommet here in the firewall. You can see where other wires are coming through here. You want to just follow that right through this grommet. So we know that we'll need to run another hot lead from the auxiliary battery back and through to our bus bars. So a little trick, we're going to tape it to itself and run it through the firewall. And then we'll cut the length later as needed. Pulled enough wire through to reach our battery right behind the seat here. So now we can make some room. To make all this wiring nice and neat, we'll hide it under the trim here, and this pulls right up nice and easy, just like that. Out of the back, it's gonna slide forward. We'll set that down. And we can pull this one out of some clips, just like that. In the rear, this pops up just the same as the front. We can tuck it right under this center pillar trim. Move the seat out of the way so we can get into this trim. And just tuck that right underneath there. Now I'll put the seat partway down and run the wire up through underneath it. All right. We have our wires from under the hood run, so let's put this back in. Beautiful. With this in here, we can start wiring up other positive leads. So we'll start with the red wire that will connect to the positive wire that runs from the starter battery through the firewall. We can go ahead and put our heat shrink on and finish that off. Now with our positive lead from our starter battery hooked up to the charger, we can hook up the positive lead that goes from our load disconnect over to the bus bar. We've already prepped the eyelet on it, just like we did before, crimped, soldered, and heat shrinked. And like I said before, the one that goes from the solenoid over to your bus bars or fuse box is the one that has the brown wire on it. Now we can lower this down and go button up under the hood. And the last thing that we'll be connecting to this later is our dual battery voltage gauge. Will go right into this terminal. Now we can hook up our positive lines to the starter battery. A good place for this fuse is right here on top of our fuse box because it's real close to the battery and you want your fuses as close to the beginning of the line as possible, wherever the start of the energy is. So we'll use a couple self-tappers to get this in right on top. Now we can hook it up. We prepped the end of the other positive cable coming from our load disconnect solenoid. And with all of our auxiliary wires hooked up, we're ready to install this wire on the bus bar. There we go. Now we can start hooking up our grounds and our dual battery voltage gauge. I found a place to mount this voltage gauge. It'll go real nice up here in the window. And this may look like a total mess right now, but I'll go ahead and cut to showing you how to get to this point. To take the dash apart, you want to take out these two bolts right down here. This will unclip. You can grab it from back here. Once this is unclipped and hanging down, this will unclip right out, just the same. To take this panel off, grab yourself a screwdriver, and these covers pop right off. And then you have two bolts that you can get with either a screwdriver or a socket. Unscrew those, this handle will come off, and then this whole panel will pull right out. Now that you're to this point with us, we're going to route both of the wiring harnesses that came with the gauge up through the dash. There it comes through, easy. With both of these wires run, we'll go ahead and plug it in to the gauge, and you cannot get this wrong. The wires, the plugs won't fit in the wrong spot. So we're gonna go ahead and plug the big one in where it says P. And this one that ultimately goes to our batteries will go in this smaller spot. There we go. Set that there for now. I'm going to tuck these wires back behind. Now we can put this pillar back on. There we go. Screw this back on. We had a spare blank from our dash, so we went ahead and drilled a hole through it big enough for our control switch for the gauge and routed it straight to that. So that'll end up right in the dash there. Now what we're going to do is tap into this green and white wire from the harness that was plugged into the back of our dimmer, our dash light dimmer. So to do that, we're gonna grab the brown wire. Now, if you got these all mixed up like I did, it's the shorter brown wire. There's another brown wire that's really long that's gonna end up going to the battery. So find this wire, we'll run it up through here behind the dash. We're gonna tap right into this green and white wire. We've pulled back some of this tape to make some room for us. Now we'll cut right here. Strip these ones. Now everybody likes different wire taps. I like to trim and use this coupler to get these two together. Run them into our coupler. With those connected, we can start putting our dash back together. Before we put our last dash panel on, there's a ground we gotta connect for the gauge. There's a real convenient spot that I've already tapped into before, right here. And we'll just use this for our ground. With that ground in place, we'll run our orange and gray through this dash fuse panel hole, and this brown wire will end up going through the firewall to the battery, so we're going to leave those real low while we snap all this back into place. And we'll button these up a little bit after it's together. With the dash back in place like we showed you before, there's just 2 bolts that we have to put in, here and here. We'll tighten those down and then move on to our fuse taps. We want to run the orange to ignition. If you look here, you'll see this top left fuse. It's a 10 amp fuse. We'll tap into that with this orange. And this 10 amp tail fuse, we'll tap in with the gray. You can find this fuse picker under your hood in your fuse box. Pull that 10 out. We'll go ahead and put that in our fuse tap. And we can go ahead and crimp this orange wire in. Now we'll do the same exact thing with the gray wire and the 10 amp tail fuse. Stick that fuse tap in. Then we can crimp our gray wire. All right, now we'll run this brown wire through the firewall to our starter battery and the red wire back to our auxiliary battery. With our voltage gauge hooked up inside, we've connected the brown wire, which is our battery number 1 on the gauge, to this inline fuse holder. Now, You can use anything from a 2 to a 5 amp fuse. We got a variety pack that came with a 3 and a 5 in it, so that's perfect for us. And we are going to put it in right here next to this hot line that runs to the BCDC charger. And keep in mind, you want these lines from the voltage gauge to be as close to the source as possible. That way you're getting a correct voltage reading. There we go. Now we can go hook up the voltage gauge to our other battery and all of the grounds, and we'll be done. So our final steps are to hook up our voltage gauge to the positive side of our auxiliary battery. And again, the red wire is the one that goes to our second battery. So we've hooked up this inline fuse holder. And like I said before, anything between 2 and 5 amps, so that's straight from the engineers at REDARC. The manual says 2 amps, but anything between 2 and 5 will work. We'll hook this right into our battery and then do our grounds. Some of the cool things of the lithium batteries, little side note, you get roughly double the capacity with the same size battery, which is super awesome. Also, something crazy like 10 times the cycles or something. And also they're the most eco-friendly batteries there are. So, okay. So now let's get our ground connections. We've prepared a wire to go from here to here. If you had a 4Runner like mine that had the rear shelf that raises and lowers, I took mine out and there's a thread here, so get yourself a bolt to fit those threads.
Or use a self-tapper.
And we can ground out right below it. Now at the end of this, we should have a total of 4 grounds to hook up. One from the battery, one from the BCDC, one from the solar, and one from our load disconnect solenoid. And by the way, this is a 6mm thread. With that bolted down, install is complete. See if this works. There it goes. We're reading voltage, battery 1, battery 2. With our button down here, check out the manual on page 5. That'll show us all of the different settings and selections that you have to work with. You'll know the system is working when you have this blinking light on your selected battery profile. In our case, it's lithium ion. There's a little LI. And also our load disconnect has this light that will stay on. Then when you start the vehicle, those lights will go solid. And when we plug in the solar light will come on as well. We're using Lion Energy 100-watt solar panels, and they connect using Anderson cable, which is a fantastic design. We got this end off Amazon for connecting to our charging system. It's important to note you want to make sure your red and black are lined up with each other. You don't want them reversed. So what happens is different cables might come in different configurations. Don't worry, you did not get the wrong cable. These easily separate, so you can reconfigure. There's channels on the sides. You can pick how exactly you want them to go together. And that is how you install a complete power management system in your 4th gen 4Runner. Thank you so much REDARC and Lion Energy for sending us this gear. If you want to know more about why we went with this system and the ins and the outs and the tech, we'll be releasing another video about that, so stay tuned. To make it easy for you, I know it's a lot, we've put together a complete kit, a bundle for you that you can purchase at our website, link in the description below. You can also get one of these cool hats and shirts there. If you liked the video, hit that like button. Consider being part of the Bender fam by subscribing to our channel. Also, if you want to see more of our content as it's released, hit that notification bell. This is Dylan from Trailbenders Overland,
out.